Welcome to Nursing Lyfe 101, the most important nursing class you never got to take in nursing school. We will be traversing different objectives like interviewing, what to do in nursing school, boundaries, burnout, and so much more. If this interests you, I hope you are taking good notes because class is now in session.
Hello, and welcome to Nursing Lyfe 101. We're so excited to have you here with us as we dive into the world of nursing, sharing our experiences, insights, and a little bit of fun along the way. I'm Christopher, and I couldn't be happier to introduce my co-host.
Hey guys, it's Colby. Together, we'll be bringing you real stories, practical tips, and discussions about all things nursing. Whether you're a fellow nurse or just curious about life behind the scrubs, we're thrilled to have you join us.
We are experienced nurses. We have been experienced nurses, I guess, if you want to say anything over the year. I have been for 4, you have been for 9.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still times where we have precepted people, we've hired people, we run across people who have come to our unit, and they are completely new. And you're like, oh boy, this is different. So we wanted to take a little bit of time and recognize the newbies in nursing career.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess really and truly this could also reflect a little bit on newbies in any career, but obviously we're going to focus on those that are in ours because we know more about that and we see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So at our healthcare system, we do a kind of like stepped based approach in terms of nursing where there are levels to what nurse you can be.
In relation to your experience.
Right.
Level.
And so the newbies are called Clin 1s.
Mm-hmm.
Those who have survived their first year and are still at the health system are called Clin 2s.
Survived and still there. Yeah, after your first year, you automatically move up to Clin 2. Or this is in Clin short for clinician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just in case someone's like, Clin?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I probably should have said that. And then in Clin 3, you have to do a portfolio and an interview. Actually, I don't think you have to do the portfolio anymore. You just have to do the interview. It used to be very extensive to get Clin 3.
I'm going to be totally honest. I'm not totally up to speed on what the clinical ladder entails because in my role, they took the clinical ladder out of the question.
Right.
They kind of took it away from charge nurses because we're in quote unquote leadership instead. So I kind of lost sight. But a lot of hospitals do a similar thing, which I've moved up on the clinical ladder, and it may or may not entail some form of portfolio or what's the other word for resume? It's not resume, but like do you know? I see your brain working. Like, you know what the word is.
I do.
Oh, this is so frustrating. But it's like a document similar to a resume where it kind of like it gives you like an exemplar of the work that you're doing to kind of prove that like you're appropriate to move up to the next step in the clinical ladder. Like, you prove that you have a certification. These are the hours of CEUs you've done. These are the subcommittees and committees that you're involved with in the hospital. I really wish I could. You're looking it up.
Yeah, I am. So you have the CV, which is
yes, the CV.
But that's an actual word, and I just can't think of curriculum vitae.
That's
what it is.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a curriculum vitae or a CV, which again is similar to a resume. Sometimes it's more involved like a portfolio. I mean, from my first job as a nurse, I stayed there for 2 years, and I was a Clin 3 when I left. I was super involved.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. In 2 years. So like I went Clin 2 after my first year. And then in that year, I worked and applied and got approved for Clin 3. So like, and I worked maybe like another 3 months. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
Yeah. But I was like really involved in like getting the hospital like magnet certified and all that stuff.
Really?
I got like kind of thrown into it because they needed someone from a like graduate nurse perspective.
Okay.
And then I guess, yeah, I don't know. I was in the right place, right time, I guess. And I was on part of all these other subcommittees. I actually got to go to the magnet convention that year too, which was really cool in Atlanta. It was a blast.
What?
Yeah. And I'm actually, what year would this be? 2015, maybe? I'm in the book from the magnet convention that year. Yeah, there's a picture of me in the actual book.
No.
So the magnet convention the year following, 2016, had pictures from the year before, and I'm in the 2016 book.
That is wild.
Yeah. So that's why I was a Clin 3,
like,
baby.
Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah. But anyways, not to toot my own horn.
Well, you sure enough did.
But anyways, yes, you can. I mean, and not every hospital you're able to do that so soon. I think some like require years of experience to also move up the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the case here in our healthcare system. But you know, I also want to just say, you talk about me doing all the stuff. I'm not in no magnet book, but you went through the process, and Clin 3s and Clin 4s have to do interviewing. And then I'm pretty sure Clin 4 has a master's degree, but you have all these things, and you get a lot of the times extra pay. You
Bonuses,
have more
at least.
responsibilities. You are looked at as more of a leader on the floor and can kind of really embrace the whole, like, I know what I'm doing. This is me now teaching someone else what they need to do.
Being a great resource, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. But, you know, we did all of that to really just focus back on the Clin 1s. And to Colby's point, inpatient charge nurses, designated inpatient charge nurses are outside of that because they are a different set of leaders that are looked higher than the Clin 3s or Clin 4s. And so going back to Clin 1s, there are a lot of things that you have to like experience as a Clin 1. And I would like for us to kind of start and just kind of explain kind of what the expectations of Clin 1s are.
I think, so I'll give my perspective, and then because this will be interesting from a charge nurse and then from like actual someone that's like manager, because you're going to have like the more like define like what it is. And then I'll give like a perception first, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Like, I'm actually going to have a definition of
I mean, you probably have read that job description more than 100 times this month.
Yes.
Because you have to go over it with new hires.
I do.
Okay, so your expectation as a new grad, your first year, you really have a lot of leniency and grace. Like, you are really just expected to learn what your role is. Like, you're learning how to be a nurse and how to perform and how to do your job and do your job correctly and provide good patient care. So the bar is high, obviously, because you want to provide great patient care and safe patient care. But just know that like every other year, the bar gets a little bit higher. So for me, the bar looks low from where I'm at. And so to put myself in the shoes, like the bar is high for someone who's coming out of school and learning exactly what being a nurse is. It's your expectation in our health system. We have something that's like a nurse residency program. So your expectation is that you're taking a part of, you're required to take part in that. And there's also like a project that you do while you're on. It's kind of like school extended. It's a good transition point I think for new grad nurses. It kind of helps again with like the puzzle piece analogy. Like it's giving you more tools for your toolbox. It's helping you make connections into like what you learned in school to what you're seeing on the floor in real practice. What else? What do you think on your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Everything you said, the perception is right. And really and truly, you as a Clin 1, when you are coming to a unit, are just supposed to be safe, right?
That's the number one thing is
Just be safe.
safe patient care.
Right. Safe patient care. You be safe and you learn. That's it. Like, yes, you can get involved into activities and like committees and all that stuff because that's a part of learning.
Yeah, and we love that. We love to see people with like new energy coming in because it's new ideas and outside perspectives that people who haven't necessarily been around that group, so you can kind of like come up with, you know, like a fresh perspective on something and really make a good change on the floor early on. But just know that like no pressure, you don't have to do that immediately if you're not ready.
Right. And more than likely, you're not going to feel ready.
No, you're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah. And it is
and that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah. And it's not your expectation to be, at least in our health system. And, you know, I'm saying this as a big brother or your crazy uncle, you know, whatever you want to call me, but you are not expected to precept. You're not expected to do charge nurse. You're not expected to be any type of leader on the unit. You know, you may have amazing leadership qualities, and you come in with those leadership qualities, which is great. Continue to cultivate those leadership qualities in something outside of nursing. And then when you get to the point where you're actually in a more knowledgeable state in nursing role, then you start to facilitate that leadership quality outward into the nursing field. But don't think about doing it, and it's okay. You know, I'm not saying don't think about it like it's a terrible idea, but like you're here to learn. You like it's a total receiving. I think clinician role.
If you have like a natural born instinct to be a leader, like think about other ways that you can use those skills. Like for instance, like one example of that would be like you started 6 months ago and then another new grad or a nurse or like a nurse's aide, a tech starts, like you can take them under your wing and show them like friendship, being a good colleague, that sort of thing, like making other people confident and comfortable in the unit too. There's nothing wrong with like having those skills naturally. Just don't get in over your head is what I'm saying, like too soon. Like just really concentrate, like we said, on safe patient care and making sure that like everything's clicking for you. You're feeling like good doing the work that you're doing. Your patients are healthy and responding well.
Yeah, because I mean that's the main goal for a Clin 1. You have way too much stuff being overwhelmed. And kind of going to those like being things that you're overwhelmed with, you have a lot of problems as a Clin 1. And it's expected for you to have these problems, honestly, because you don't know anything.
Yeah, it's a big problem-solving year. It's when your critical thinking skills come into like fruition. It's like a big, this is so cheesy and corny, but like it's a big like blossoming year. Like you're starting off as like a little bud in the spring, and then like by the end of it, you're a full-blown flower.
Oh my goodness.
That's so corny, the analogy, but it is. It's
the
like
eye rolls I'm giving the camera.
But it works. It's a big problem solving year. I mean, you are learning time management, you're learning medications that you went over for one unit in pharmacology class. Like you're becoming
you dump those after that class.
Yeah, it's like rote memorization, then all of a sudden you have to apply and you're like, wait, I think metoprolol sounds familiar. What does that do again? Like, and then all of a sudden you're giving this med every single day to multiple patients. Like, you know it all of a sudden, like the back of your hand, but it takes time. You're going to start and just be like, I don't know. And that's okay. And that's why you are getting precepted and you're on orientation. And this is a great opportunity and time for you to ask questions.
And please do. Like, there was a preceptor that was precepting someone else, and they had told this person there are no stupid questions except for the ones you don't ask that lead to a patient's death.
I love that. There are no stupid questions except for the ones that you don't ask. Say it again, louder for the people in the back. I always say that to people. I love the new graduate nurses on my unit, and I feel they always come up to me and they're like, "I'm so sorry I'm asking you so many questions." I always say, don't apologize. I'd rather you ask me 100 questions than you go do something you're not sure about and you mess it up and the patient pays for it.
Right.
Like, ultimately, ask your question. If you're right, I'll tell you you're right. Yeah, you got it.
Great job.
Like, thanks for asking. You totally know what you're doing, though, in this situation. And if it turns out that you didn't know, it's a good thing you asked, because now I'm here as your resource to tell you or give you advice or, help you form your thoughts to send a page to a doctor. Like, I would rather you ask me every single question that you think might be so annoying, because it's not annoying to me. Trust me. Like, when it comes down to it, it's about safe patient care. So you ask your elders, and I hate to refer to myself as an elder, but ask your elders on the floor, people with experience, any question. And that's part of the learning process.
All right, y'all. It's time for our segment break. And today we're diving into something that could literally change how you perform, recover, and last in your nursing career. Welcome to Biohacking for Nurses.
So this is one that's like near and dear to our hearts.
It really is.
It really is. So biohacking isn't just for elite athletes or Silicon Valley tech bros. It's all about understanding and optimizing your own body. And as nurses, that's crucial, right? All right. We push our limits every shift, but what if we can work smarter, not harder, by tracking our own biometrics?
So let's break it down. There are key biometrics we can track that directly affect our performance, recovery, and overall health. Here are some of the most important ones. Your heart rate variability, which is also known as HRV, tracks stress and recovery. A low HRV might mean you've overworked or not recovering well. Resting heart rate, also known as RHR, is a great indicator of overall cardiovascular health and fitness. You know those patients that turn on the cardiac alarm because they're sleeping and they're dropping into the 40s because they're 20 years old and run marathons? They have a low
resting heart rate. Yeah, RHR and probably HRV.
And probably also. Sleep quality and REM cycles, one I don't do very well. Poor sleep is the number one way to burn out faster. Tracking sleep can reveal patterns affecting performance. Blood glucose levels, monitoring this can prevent energy crashes during your shifts. Hydration and electrolytes. Many nurses don't drink enough water on shift.
Facts.
I drink a gallon, so...
You're actively doing 75 hard right now. That's why you're drinking a gallon.
Yeah, that's a little bit different.
Right. Previously, you were slacking off.
It's true. Mm-hmm. But I also have a scale that shows me my hydration and electrolytes. Did I tell you that? Yes.
On what? We'll get into it.
Okay. Hydration levels impact cognitive function and fatigue. Body temperature trends can indicate early signs of illness or stress-related burnout.
And the best part is that you don't even need labs to track this. Wearables like the Oura Ring, Whoop Band, Apple Watch, and CGMs, which are continuous glucose monitors, can give you real-time insights. And let me tell you, Christopher and I have all of the above. We are enthusiastic about biohacking ourselves, and we've done tons of extracurricular research on how to live longer, live healthier and longer.
Yeah. I said it briefly in one of the other episodes. It's important to keep a vegan in your life.
That is one of the suggestions that we've come across.
It is.
And that's why I keep Christopher around.
Only for that reason.
Just that. That's it.
Okay, so why does this matter? Nursing is physically and mentally demanding, and if we're not paying attention to these biometrics, we're setting ourselves up for burnout, exhaustion, and even long-term health problems.
Right. So let's say that your HRV is super low for weeks, and you might be overstressed. You might be not sleeping enough. Your body isn't recovering between shifts. If you track that and make small adjustments like better hydration, getting a couple hours extra sleep, stress management, you're preventing future exhaustion. This is biohacking 101.
It is. It really is. And same goes for sleep tracking. If you're constantly getting poor REM sleep, it might be affecting your reaction time, your mood, and even patient safety. Imagine being able to fine-tune your routine to show up sharper and more alert on your shift.
This is why we're obsessed with it.
It's true. It's so true. And I mean, like, literally, I look at my Whoop data in the mornings, and I am constantly I have a constant sleep debt, which is bad.
It is bad.
It's not good.
But is it making you want to fix it? Because it would motivate me to like be like, okay, what can I get done, and like how can I squeeze in an extra hour of sleep?
I mean, I'm trying.
The disappointment. I'm trying. Well, you recently just got the Whoop, and you have the Apple Watch and Oura Ring, which is cool. I have been on a long journey of finally breaking down to get the Oura Ring, and I am currently wearing the sizing kit to determine what would be the best size for me, because I have officially broken down.
Yay.
But I have an Apple Watch. And I think while it does basic need for your keeping track of your biometrics, there's technology out there that's so much better. So that's why I'm like, okay, I need more information. I need better battery life. I'm going to get the Oura Ring. But then something we both just did together recently was get the CGMs, the continuous glucose monitors, because they're newer, easily accessible over-the-counter technology.
Right.
And not that I had any fear that I might be like a diabetic or have high blood sugars, but I just like wanted to use that as another tool to figure out how my body is reacting to things.
It's wild.
And it's been so fun.
It is. And I mean, there was one day I had eaten something. I had eaten Utz pretzels.
Gotta be careful with the pretzels.
I went from between 75 and 85 to 150.
Yeah.
And
off of like one serving of pretzels?
Like a slight handful of pretzels.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way I'm eating these ever again.
Well, you can, just with moderation. I think something...
What is moderation?
But how long did it take you? So for me, not pretzels, but fruit.
Yeah, throw yours off.
I had an orange and I went up to like 169 in orange, and then like blueberries. But I think it's the amount of time. I think also we need to take in consideration, and I personally need to do even more research about endocrine system, but like how long you're in that spike for.
Yeah.
Like how long are you above one, like the, quote unquote normal gold star values would be 70 to 140. So as long as you're in that range, you are within quote unquote recommended range. So when I do have these little spikes after eating fruit, or like for breakfast, I like to have like overnight oats and like fresh fruit in it.
Yeah.
I spike up to like 150, but usually within an hour, if not sooner, I'm back within the normal range. So I think while it's super distressing, because us as health caregivers are like, oh my God, we're not normal. Like our sugar's not within that normal range all the time. I think also we need to take in factor like how long we're above the green.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, and even our CGM tells us that we should be, as healthy individuals, should be within the 70 to 140 about 96% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
we are.
No.
Oh.
Last week.
What?
Last week, I was only 81% of
what?
I know.
What were you eating?
I don't know. It also was like the last couple of days of the CGM, and there were like, I had multiple like under 70 moments. But then just 2 nights ago, yeah, that sounds right. Just 2 nights ago, I had the worst sleep of my life, by the way. And I was like constantly high.
Weird.
Yeah.
What did you eat before you went to bed?
I can't remember.
Oh.
I would have to...
you have to go back and look.
Yeah, I would have to look. Which is cool with the CGM. You can track what you actually ate.
Yeah, what might have caused your spike.
And like the carb amounts that you consumed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun to kind of like learn how your body is reacting to your relationship with food, exercise, sleep, hydration, using a whole new tool that we're not familiar with.
Right.
I've just been like fascinated, absolutely fascinated by it. So yeah, and then I'll continue with my journey of fascination when my Oura Ring comes in the mail and I get to dabble in the app for that. So I highly suggest everyone get it.
Yeah, no, like at least one thing, right? And
yeah, you don't need to be all of them, not like us. We're just crazy.
But the cool thing is, majority of them you can use your HSA or HSA or FSA to get it.
That's very true. Yeah, so like That's free money.
It is.
That's not true, but that's how I think of my HSA.
That's girl math.
Yeah, that's girl math.
I'm all about it.
And that's what I use to pay for my Oura Ring. So, and for me, like, to spend $500, a couple $100 on a biometric tool, I feel like to gain that insight and get that information on myself and have like a baseline of health for myself is worth it in the long run, instead of a lot of times, like, as healthcare workers, I see it. I'm sure you've seen it so many times that our bodies are so good at compensating when things start to fall apart that sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of the time, your patient comes to the hospital when their body's like at the end of the line. Like,
Right.
I am in, like, they are in so much distress that their body is like, alarm, alarm, but they probably have been living with, for example, heart failure, with
years.
like small signs of heart failure for months to years. And if they had a biometric device where they were tracking it, they might have noticed, like,
Right.
oh, my heart rate variability is changed, or my resting heart rate is changed, or, there's like the VCO2, like all of these things that track. If you're cognizant and you're looking at those things, you're going to notice an acute change sooner than if you didn't have access to that data.
Yep. Yeah. And it's just a cool way. I remember Dame Colby. It's Colby's dang fault. I've had my Oura Ring for 2 years now, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely been over a year. It's probably close to 2 years.
Yeah. And it's because this one, and I'm pointing at her, decides to be like, Christopher, can you take me to get my wisdom teeth removed? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I go take her to get her wisdom teeth removed. And as we're driving there, she's like, hey, have you heard about this Oura Ring? Blah, 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 blah. It takes HSA, blah, 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 blah. I can't spend my HSA because I'm about to spend it with this.
Get my teeth pulled.
Get my teeth pulled. Blah, 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 blah. But you should get it, Christopher. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just as gullible as anyone. And I'm like, sitting in the lobby after they've walked off to take Colby to get her teeth, and I'm like, well, might as well go ahead and get it.
But not only Christopher, I like convinced probably like 5 people that year to get the Oura Ring, and people were like, wait, you don't have one? And I was like, no.
Not at all.
So the fact that I'm getting one now is really funny to a lot of people, because they're like, you convinced us to spend like a couple $100 on a device that you didn't even have. And I was like, I should get a cut, is what you're saying. Like, what you're saying is Aura should send me this podcast is not sponsored, but if they want to, and give me my ring for free and upgrade Christopher's to the new Gen 4.
Yeah. I'll take that too.
Yeah. I'm here. I'm advocating for you guys. But yeah, they're just, we have a fascination with like blue zones, just living healthy. Like I said, living healthier and for longer. And I just love that I have tangible data that I can see every day and like see what I can do to biohack myself into feeling better, performing better, everything just enhanced.
And it's really and truly, like, I've noticed, and even if you pay attention to your Apple Watch when you set it to like do a workout, like if you just you don't need all these other things. You don't. I suggest you get it. I have the Whoop and the Apple Watch on one on each wrist, but the Whoop does just as much as the Oura Ring.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I have all this information, but even I know I was supposed to write Colby a 2-page double space report. I was looking at over the differences between. I honestly like Whoop's ability to show like strain during your workouts.
Yeah.
Like the Oura Ring doesn't really do that, but like it puts a number out there to show like how hard you actually went in your workout. And obviously if you go all out all the time, then you're going to get closer to injury possibly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's like a balance in you being able to like strain your body enough to just like, man, I need to stop on this whole working out and muscles and stretching and building muscles. But you work it out just enough to strain it just enough to build that muscle for the next time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
It's just fascinating.
It is.
All right, guys. So I'm going to present you all with a challenge. So if you have a smartwatch, fitness tracker, or even a good old-fashioned notepad, start tracking one of these metrics for the next 2 weeks. Maybe it's sleep, hydration, or your heart rate variability. Write down what you noticed. Did you even feel more energized? Do you feel less fatigued?
And if you find something interesting, hit us up on social media at Nursing Lyfe 101 or Nurse Lyfe 101.
Mhm.
And let's talk about it. The more we learn about our bodies, the longer and stronger we can stay in this career.
Nursing is a marathon, not a sprint, everyone. So let's start playing the long game. That's it for biohacking for nurses. Now, back to our episode.
You know, and in those moments, I want to ask you another question, but because we were talking about this, you had mentioned, I'm never annoyed by those questions or frustrated or like, why are they asking me all this? There are some people that either look like that and don't feel that way, that actually don't actually feel that way, but look that way and actually feel that way. How do you navigate that as a Clin 1? Because you're like, I really don't know. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like you'll always, even not in nursing specifically, you'll always have like that mean person that and it's just inevitable. That's life.
Yeah.
And so let's say, you know what? You still got to ask. If they're the only person around, it's it comes down to safe patient care. You got to ask, even if they're annoyed. At least you didn't kill a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, if there are more people around, that person's not the friendliest, ask someone else. Like, just don't be afraid. You got to get the question out. You got to ask.
You really do. And, this goes back to, we just had a couple episodes ago about interviews and like asking about the culture of a unit. That's a question you need to like experience in itself. You can't ask that question. That's why you shadow.
Yeah. You can't say, do you have anybody mean on the unit?
Right.
They're going to be like, no.
Right.
But they don't know. Even your managers probably don't know that someone's mean. I mean, they probably do, let's be honest. But I mean, they're also not going to be like, no, everyone's so nice. Like that, of course, that's going to be their answer. Everyone's so nice.
Right. I mean, we have interviewing skills just as much as you do, right? Like, I mean, we've done it quite a few times now.
Yeah.
And I've asked the questions and have answered the questions that we've been asked. But, you going to shadow that person and having to see the shadow and kind of asking them while they're doing their work, but also asking other people, you start to figure out, are these people actually going to be really nice if I have all these questions? Because I'm asking questions now.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of information up front, right? Yeah, that goes back to an earlier podcast episode about interviewing, and it's so true. Yeah, you've just got to be ready to ask questions, and also keep in mind that like as the new person, whether you're coming in with experience or not, like just new to the unit, like the people who are there with experience, like we also are like anticipating being asked questions. So like, yeah, there's going to be someone that's grumpy and like doesn't really seem like they have the time for you. There's going to be somebody else around. Ask anybody else. We're anticipating that you're going to have questions. Like we're here. We on my unit, and I know on Christopher's unit, really try to cultivate a culture that is welcoming to others that are not like normally working with us or new to working with us, because we want to keep you. Like we want to keep you here. We want to build our team, and we want to provide good patient care to everyone together.
Right. So we talk about asking these questions. As a Clin 1, what do you say they should focus on? Like what is in your eyes, what is the top, we'll just say the top 3 things they should focus on learning? Because you're right, they have medications that they have to learn.
I was going to say medications.
They have how to communicate to a provider, how to communicate to their techs, how to communicate to their coworkers, their other nurses that they're kind of working alongside. They've got how to survive a night shift and not fall asleep and make it home safely, depending on how far they drive. Like they have how much of the pathophysiology should they learn? They have so much things that they have to learn as a Clin 1. How do you...
Becomes very overwhelming. I
Yeah.
think the top 3 for me personally, number 1 would be familiarize yourself with the most common medications given on your unit. Now that could be hard if you're on like a general medicine floor, but if you're in a specific specialty like myself with cardiology, there's going to be like meds, like I said, like metoprolol is one that we give to almost every single patient, like every single day that you have. Like familiarize yourself with medications that you're going to be giving commonly.
Or Sodalol or Ticacin, where you have to give EKG.
If it's like a specialty specific med as well. I think that alone, like once you become familiar with before you become like secondhand to those, it's so important to make sure you know what you're giving. And I say that there are still medicines today that I will look up before I give the patient the medication, because I'm like, I've never even heard of this. What the heck kind of med is this? And a lot of times for me, it's like someone who's on my floor and is coincidentally like on a random chemo med. And I'm like, I don't know anything about chemo. I'm like, what is this one? Let me look this up. Because if you're giving a medication and you don't know what you're giving it for, what it does to the body, and the patient, and I'll use metoprolol again as an example, it's a beta blocker. It's going to lower blood pressure and heart rate. If you get the patient, like if you know that does those things, you're going to want to get a baseline blood pressure and heart rate before you give the medication.
Right.
So if you get a blood pressure and it's 90/50 and the heart rate is 55, that should put a little red flag and say, I need to check with the physician and make sure that they still want this med given.
Right.
They're already Brady, their heart rate's 55, and their blood pressure is soft. Sometimes a physician will say, go ahead and give that med. That's okay. We're expecting that. We want the blood pressure low. We'll watch the heart rate. And sometimes they say, you know what? Good catch. Let's hold that dose and we'll reevaluate at the next dose.
Right.
Like if you didn't know that as a new grad to make those connections, you could have potentially made someone decompensate further very quickly, whether that their blood pressure tanks or their heart rate, comes down even further.
Right.
That's like my number 1.
Yeah. And I mean, you did that with the best intentions, right? You were like, I know that this person needs metoprolol.
Yeah.
But
it's on their med list, and this is the time, and I did my 5 rights. Right. And you think like I did all the things, I scanned all of the meds, I did all of, everything matched. So I went ahead and gave it, like, without knowing what some of the medications do to the body. It's not safe. That's not safe patient care.
It's not.
Like you just have to look it up, and that's going to take more time. Right. So as a Clin 1 or a new graduate nurse, everything takes more time. So my second is time management. Okay. So familiarize yourself with medications, 1, and then follow up with time management. That's my number 2. I'm going to sit here and think about number 3 while I'm talking about this, but it's like in your new days, like you may have to do a little extracurricular work outside of work to get yourself prepared while you're at work. Like otherwise you're just going to be bogged down by looking up 12 medications at 9:00 in the morning times 4, 5, 6, depending on what your ratios are. I mean, that means MedPass won't be finished until 11:00 noon and you still haven't charted anything.
That's not good.
So time management really can get away from you in your first year, in your first weeks, in your first months. Some people really kind of get a hold of things pretty quickly, and some people for their whole careers struggle with it. I've seen like nurses that come in and they don't clock out until like 9:00 in the morning because they're still charting, which is like unacceptable, but like I've seen it happen. So you want to do your best to figure out like how to prioritize tasks and like acuity so that you're not one of those nurses that are staying so late after your shift to catch up. Now, once in a while, you're having like the shift from hell. That'll happen to you. It's been a long time since I've had one, but
knock on that.
I know I better knock on one. I do work the next 2 days, but like once in a while that will happen, and that's inevitable, and that's okay. But like when it's a consistent issue for you, red flags going down the line further in your career. So it's really important to kind of get a hold of your time management skills. And that kind of goes to my third one is organization. And it's going to help you with both of the other two. Mm-hmm. So maybe that one should be first, is to be organized. You want to use your report sheet. It organizes your thoughts about what's going on with each individual patient. You're going to be able to see when medications are due. It's going to, if you're organized, you can map out your whole day. I mean, you have to be flexible, of course, because there's always going to be a wrench thrown into your plan. But I mean, if you have like a general outline because you were organized at the start of your shift, it's going to be okay to be bendy and flexy and make moves because right. You know, you can anticipate what is going to happen. So you can, make adjustments where you need to. So I think those are my three.
Yeah,
so,
I think those are good. Yeah. I think all of those sound great. I also would agree that the unit-specific medications is a very important thing to do. And, I was in a unit that was the same as Colby's, but it wasn't until I transitioned to transplant that I had to learn antithymus globulin. I had to learn what Cellcept or mycophenolate was, or tacrolimus, or Prograf, or Bella, or Similac, like Belatacept. Excuse me, Bella is Belatacept, and then Similac. Like all of these are all transplant-specific medications, mm-hmm. but they also have very unique side effects. Like you really need to know that, and as a nurse, we have said this before, you educate your patient. So when I give tacrolimus, and we talked about this, Prograf is good for your kidney, mm-hmm. but tacrolimus is also the quote unquote nerve drug. You get tremors if you have a high dose of tacrolimus. You can have headaches. You can have all these things that kind of happen. And then Cellcept is more of your GI medication where you're thinking nausea, diarrhea,
mm-hmm. So as a Clin 1, you're gathering all this information. Eventually you'll get used, because you're giving, again, these are like unit specific meds. If you're on the transplant floor, you're going to get used to giving these meds. You're going to know it like the back of your hand. But it's like Christopher said, part of our responsibility and our job role is to educate the patient. So if someone came in and they got a transplant, on this admission, and they have a new organ, and now they're getting all these new meds. And of course, they probably had pre-op education and been told that they were going to start these meds, but it's a very overwhelming time before and after surgery. So we are all working together to kind of try and solidify this new information with our patients. So they might say what is the tac drug again?
Right.
And while we're giving these meds, we said, this is tacrolimus. This is an anti-rejection med for your new organ, blah, blah, blah. It is our responsibility to do that education.
It is.
We actually have to document that we do that education.
Right. And so I do think that is one of the top 3 things that you should kind of really focus on. The second thing I really would want Clin 1s to focus on is their ability to have conversation.
Mm.
Communication is a class given in a lot of different colleges. There are different ways to communicate to people. There are different books about communication. And it is something that you will need not only in nursing, you will need communication everywhere. And I will be the first one to say, I am not the great at my communication skills. I'm not. I am very introverted. I'd much rather just talk to myself and have all my thoughts in my head and never say them out loud. But I am on multiple occasions confused as an extrovert because I have learned how to come off as this person who knows how to have communication with other people, but I don't. I really don't. It's a struggle for me, and I encourage you to embrace that struggle and go through that struggle.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing, being willing to struggle.
Yeah,
because
it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. And I am one who also absolutely hates to be last. I am very competitive. I just hate it. I hate being the struggle bus of anything. But you as a Clin 1 are going to struggle, and that's okay. It is.
Mhm.
It's totally fine. When you struggle, you learn. You allow your muscles to, just like lifting weights. I don't know why. I hate lifting weights. Like, genuinely. I am more of a calisthenic workout person, so I don't know why I keep referring to lifting of weights as analogies. But as you lift weights, your body strains. That strain, that struggle builds more muscles. And that more muscles makes you able to lift and strain more. And so when you are in the trenches struggling, know that this is going to be hard. It is not easy. This is not an easy job. This will not always be sunshine and rainbows with wonderful daisies and sunflowers. You will have days where you go home and you cry yourself to sleep.
Mm.
That's going to happen. It is your ability to be resilient that is going to get you through your Clin 1. It is. And you have the ability to reach out to those that you have mentors. Your manager is a great resource and does not want you to struggle alone. So reach out to them when you're struggling and talk to them because it's important. It really is. Your charge nurses, though they might not be as available on the floor, I'm sure would love to grab coffee with you. I'm sure would love to grab a bite to eat. Would like to do things outside of work so that they can ensure you are taken care of
Mhm.
because this is your big person job. And you're like, I just jumped in. I'm drowning because I have never known this amount of like acuity because I was just a nursing student and I only took care of that one patient, or I was with the nurse, but I really didn't do it because the nurse was the one that was actually doing the work and doing the assessment. I just kind of lackadaisically did an assessment on my own, computer or paper or whatever. And then you're thrown in and you're like, hope you float.
It does feel like that, at least the hope you float, sink or swim situation. But
Right.
but no, that's how it feels, but it's not reality.
It's not.
And don't be afraid to ask for a life preserver because there are people that want to help you.
And we really do.
But if we don't know, then we can't. So you have to ask for help. Sometimes, I mean, as charge, I do keep a close eye on my graduate nurses who are freshly off orientation. And we're also making assignments for, the next shift. And there's graduate nurses on every shift. So we want to make sure we're setting you guys up for success and giving you an appropriate assignment so that you don't feel like you're drowning. But there's always, unexpected outcomes, and like a patient that was super stable all day can suddenly start circling the drain.
Right.
And so sometimes those difficult shifts happen, and like Christopher said, like you may feel like you're just gonna like burst into tears, and I've done it. I've cried at work. I've cried on my way home because just the shift was overwhelming. And this is not even like in my new grad year. I'm talking like I have, not too recently, but I have in the last year at least, like have had a bad enough shift that on the way home I'm crying. So it is an unfortunate byproduct of our job, but know that like you are not alone. And when it all feels so overwhelming, know that there's somebody else on the unit that has been in your shoes in that moment as well. And we are comrades.
Yeah. You're never alone.
Yeah.
And to Colby's point, when charge nurses makes an assignment, 9.879% of the time, they are not doing a bad assignment to be malicious.
Oh yeah, no.
Like we as humans do not have the ability to have a crystal ball and say, oh yeah, this patient is going to decompensate at 200 and
and they're gonna have a shit night.
Right. Yes. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So, just know that it's not intentional, but you can, those are, if you feel that way, that's something that you should
Speak up about for sure.
approach
Yeah.
about. And
Yeah.
it's okay to be like, hey, I just realized that, my assignment was a little harder than I anticipated it for it to be. Is there any reason why? Like, is there any way that I can, and maybe it is something that you yourself can improve on, right? Like maybe you have to have something to improve on, but maybe it's just that,
Also, a note while we're talking, and I think it's super important to empower graduate nurses. Like, if you do have a shift and like one of the patients in your group was just kicking your ass, like you just like you were just beat down at the end of the shift, like that patient was so heavy, and like whether it was like emotionally heavy, like they were a patient that was just like mean or crude, or like if it was like actually like medically heavy and you need a break, like I empower any nurse, not just a graduate nurse, but because we're speaking on being Clin 1s today, to talk to your charge nurse and say, hey, I'm back, tomorrow, or I'm back tonight, depending on what your shift you are, and I don't think I can take 13 back. Like, I need a break from that patient.
Right.
It was a hard night. And that's totally acceptable.
Totally acceptable.
Yeah. Like we can, if you want to you just have to use your words and explain like just that patient, or you're like, just start me over with a whole new group. Like you can ask for that. At the end of your shift, you're like, hey, this was not it. Like this group should not, or if you're like, I'm fine with taking like some of these patients back, but and maybe you just didn't realize that they're very heavy altogether, and maybe we need to like just don't put these two patients together for your next shift, like if you're leaving and whatever. Like that insight, like while we are in charge nurse roles, and we do know a little bit about everyone, or we know a lot about every patient on the floor. Like we don't know everything. So it could be just that you feel like you're getting beat down in your assignments as a Clin 1. The charge nurse might not realize the acuity of the patient. Hopefully, it has happened in the past.
It has.
It's just like, human error. So like definitely, I want to empower you all to like speak up and talk to your charge nurses and let them know, because they are the ones making the assignments.
And really and truly, it really could just be the layout of the unit, because your unit, even its little adjunct, is actually pretty close together.
Yeah.
And my unit
is I twice as big.
Yeah, I could go the entire day and never know
someone else is working. Yeah, that's true.
And that's not, the charge nurse is a resource, and they truly are amazing, because they do know a decent amount about every patient. But you just can't know everything about a patient.
Yeah. Something else with assignment making, like let's say you're like, oh, like on geographic, like I have a patient in one end of the hallway in room 20 and another patient at the other end of the hallway in room 1, like that's kind of far. I would like my patients to be closer together. Can we consider that? It's always fine to ask, and maybe it could be changed to make it easier. But just know that sometimes when the charge nurse is making an assignment, the front of, the hallway 1 through 6 might be super heavy patients. So you can't give a nurse, including yourself as a new graduate nurse, this, the front of the hall.
3 heavy patients.
Yeah, because then you're like, what the heck? So you got to split it up. But again, I empower you to ask questions and bring up your observations, because if you don't, then you just you don't share the information the charge nurse doesn't know, and if you don't ask the question, then you don't know about the acuity of the whole floor. So I think it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, and to recap all of this, in terms of learning, 1, unit specific medications.
Yes.
Colby's number 2,
time management,
and Colby's number 3,
organization.
Okay. Christopher's number 2 is, being able to communicate. Like, it's important. And then
number 3,
Christopher's number 3 is being willing to struggle.
Yes.
And so, all of that is important. And I think when you combine all of those things, you really, as a Clin 1, will start to blossom and find your rhythm. You really will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Class dismissed.
Let's wrap it up.
That's a wrap for today's session of Nursing Lyfe 101. We hope you found some useful takeaways to bring back to the floor. Remember, nursing is a lifelong learning journey, and we're here with you.
If you want to connect, find us on Twitter at Nurse Lyfe 101 or on Facebook at Nursing Lyfe 101. And don't forget to subscribe and share with fellow nurses. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep making a difference out there.